Server components, changing the way we think about rendering in our React applications. With React 18, you can now select the rendering environments of parts of your application at the component level, and you can choose from two environments, the client or the server. The client refers to the browser on a user's device that sends requests to a server for your application's code. The server, on the other hand, refers to the computer in a data center that receives these requests from the client and sends back the appropriate response. These servers can also be regarded as computers in a region where your application is deployed. Before React 18, the primary way to render your application using React was entirely on the client side. Next.js provided a more convenient way to partition your application into pages and pre-render them on the server by generating HTML and sending it to the client to be hydrated by React. In this context, hydration means your application runs a piece of JavaScript to mount event handlers and make your HTML elements interactive. But with server components, things are about to take a fresh approach, especially with the involvement of Next.js in the ecosystem. Before we dive into Next.js, let's discuss the revolution brought by server and client components. So how do server components make things different? Server components in React now grant you the flexibility to decide where to render your components based on their purpose. Consider a page layout. For instance, if we break a page into components, we'll find that most of the page is non-interactive, and the interactive parts of the page are scattered into smaller sections. Server components now grants us the option to render these differently, leading to significantly improved performance. Instead of downloading an HTML document and running our JavaScript code to generate our component, server components execute our React components code on the server. They send the fully generated HTML documents to be displayed on our browser without requiring additional JavaScript for hydration, leading to vastly quicker rendering. It's worth noting, however, that client components in React and Next.js work differently. Client components in Next.js are still rendered on the server, and the hydration is done on the client's browser. In contrast, React client components are executed and hydrated on the client's browser, which results in your application doing more work on the browser to render your page. This difference is one of the few advantages of using a framework like Next.js over vanilla React. Even React in their official documentation suggests using a framework to build your application. In addition to optimized performance, we also get to optimize memory by reducing the client-side bundle size. This means that even third-party packages exclusively utilized in our server components do not get bundled and sent to the client. They perform their tasks on the server and stay there. This feature is invaluable. Using server and client components in Next.js. In version 13, Next.js introduced a new app router built on server components, which supports shared layouts, nested routing, loading states, error handling, and more. So be sure to hit that subscribe button for more tutorials. App router works in a new directory named app. This directory operates alongside the pages directory, allowing you to opt some routes for your application into the new behavior while retaining the previous behavior for other routes in the pages directory. This feature is especially beneficial for those migrating to the app directory from the old Next.js pages directory method. By default, all components in the app directory are server components. This setup allows you to automatically adopt them with no extra work as you would have to do in vanilla React. To use client components, you opt in using the use client directive at the very top of your JavaScript or TypeScript file, right above your import statements. When to use server and client components. Data fetching. Fetching data in server components and passing them down to our client components accelerate our data retrieval since the parent components is on the server and can immediately communicate with the server to send our data down to our client. Accessing back-end resources directly. With server components, we can now access back-end resources directly without the overdependence on route handlers. keeping sensitive information on the server, such as API tokens and API keys. Sensitive information utilized in our server components remain on the server and never get downloaded to the clients. This security feature is due to how server components download our HTML to be rendered. In the server components, the return JSX in our functional components is what gets downloaded, while the code responsible for executing the components gets executed and stays on the server. Client components. Add in interactivity and event listeners. Interactive elements like buttons and input components are only allowed in client components, and any form of HTML events on the server would cause a hydration error. Using state and lifecycle effects. React hooks are also only allowed in client components. Using browser-only APIs. Browser storage APIs such as web storage APIs are only allowed on the client. Using custom hooks that depend on state, effects, or browser-only APIs are also only allowed on the client. And that wraps up our deep dive into server and client components in React and Next.js. As we've explored, these elements are revolutionizing the way we approach rendering in React applications. With this knowledge in your toolkit, you're equipped to optimize performance, improve security, and ultimately create more powerful and efficient applications. Remember, server and client components each have their unique strengths and ideal use cases. Utilizing them in harmony will help you get the most out of your React applications. If you found this guide helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest in web development. Feel free to leave your comments and thoughts down in the comment section. And remember, keep building, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video.